This review was prepared by Ayushi Gupta and Abhishek Behl and published by TheoryHub. TheoryHub covers a wide range of theories and acts as a starting point for theory exploration in different research and teaching and learning contexts. This is a review of the self-determination theory. Self-determination theory aims to understand the interplay between personality, motivation, and optimal functioning, highlighting how both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation foster behavioral patterns and psychological performance. Self-determination theory is a comprehensive framework for understanding motivation in relation to personality development, social interactions, and psychological functioning. It explores how social environments and individual differences contribute to varying forms of motivation, particularly autonomous motivation and controlled motivation. These motivational forms subsequently impact learning, performance, subjective experience, and psychological well-being. A defining characteristic of self-determination in psychology is the ability to adaptively regulate the dynamic interaction between oneself and the external environment. When individuals are self-determined, their actions stem from personal volition, rather than external pressure or obligation. Their decisions are informed by an awareness of their intrinsic psychological needs and an adaptive perception of external circumstances. These intrinsic psychological needs, which also determine intrinsic motivation, emphasize the multifaceted nature of human motivation and the various conditions that either facilitate or impede autonomous participation in activities. Intrinsic motivation refers to an inherent and natural inclination to explore personal interests, develop one's abilities, and pursue optimal challenges. It is characterized by engaging in an activity for its inherent enjoyment and personal fulfillment, rather than as a means to achieve an external objective, distinguishing it from extrinsic motivation. This form of motivation arises autonomously from internal psychological processes, and can sustain behavior independently of external rewards or external regulation. It plays a crucial role in fostering learning, adaptation, and the development of the competencies essential to human growth. Research suggests that intrinsic motivation is an innate characteristic, with individuals naturally exhibiting it when environmental conditions are supportive. Extrinsic motivation describes behaviors driven by factors external to the activity itself, rather than by inherent interest. Such behaviors can vary in the degree to which they are perceived as autonomous or pressured, with some actions feeling externally compelled, while others align more closely with personal values and preferences. When extrinsically motivated behaviors are guided by individual values and desires rather than external controls, they exhibit a greater degree of self-determination. Although self-determination is often associated with actively exercising control over one's actions and environment, it also encompasses the capacity to intentionally relinquish control when such a decision is aligned with personal values or contextual demands. This voluntary choice reflects an autonomous form of regulation, whereby the individual consciously opts to defer, delegate, or accept outcomes without coercion, demonstrating flexibility in the pursuit of self-endorsed goals. The theory posits that all individuals possess three fundamental psychological needs: competence, autonomy, and relatedness, which serve as essential psychological nutrients for optimal functioning and well-being. And autonomy. At the core of SDT is the principle of autonomy, which highlights the importance of volitional engagement and self-endorsement in behavior. According to Deci and Ryan, motivation is most effective when individuals experience a genuine sense of choice and control over their actions. This perception of autonomy fosters higher quality motivation and contributes significantly to overall psychological well-being. Competence. The need for competence reflects an innate psychological need to develop skills, overcome challenges, and experience a sense of effectiveness. Studies indicate that when individuals feel competent, they gain a sense of achievement and psychological growth, which in turn strengthens intrinsic motivation. Relatedness. This represents the fundamental human need to establish meaningful social connections and interpersonal bonds. Within the framework of SDT, fostering a sense of belonging and social inclusion is essential for enhancing intrinsic motivation and promoting psychological well-being. According to SDT, individuals are naturally inclined to realize their full potential when their core psychological needs are fulfilled. Thus, individuals demonstrate an inherent propensity for personal development, which in turn fosters sustained intrinsic motivation, vitality, and overall psychological well-being. In such a state of autonomy, individuals are more likely to internalize external influences, including societal norms and objectives, particularly when these are congruent with their personal values. This internalization makes it possible for individuals to perceive their actions as self-directed, rather than externally imposed. However, under external pressures, internalization may be incomplete or entirely absent, leading to different forms of regulation. Within SDT, internalization and integration are related, but different processes in the development of self-regulation. Internalization refers to the process by which individuals actively integrate externally regulated behaviors and values into their own sense of self, ultimately transforming them into personally meaningful and self-endorsed regulations. When internalization is hindered, individuals may experience conflict and pressure, resulting in reduced intrinsic motivation and increased negative emotions. While short-term resilience can mitigate these effects, prolonged external regulation can lead to enduring declines in well-being. Under such conditions, individuals may transition to a controlled mode of self-regulation, wherein their behaviors become detached from their core psychological needs. Over time, this may give rise to compensatory behaviors such as psychological withdrawal, emotional detachment, or narcissistic tendencies, which serve as protective responses to unmet needs. These cumulative experiences shape an individual's causality orientation, which refers to their habitual tendency to regulate behavior in an autonomous or controlled manner. Integration, by contrast, represents the fullest and most complete form of internalization, where the adopted regulations are not only accepted, but also brought into harmony with one's core values, beliefs, and sense of self. Thus, while internalization describes the general process of taking in external motivations, integration marks the endpoint of this process, where regulations are fully assimilated into the self and enacted with a sense of volition and autonomy. For several decades, SDT has served as a foundational framework for research across multiple academic domains. By integrating the principles of SDT across diverse contexts, it is possible to create environments that support autonomy, competence, and relatedness, thereby enhancing intrinsic motivation and facilitating optimal human development. SDT remains highly relevant across multiple disciplines, providing valuable insights into the promotion of intrinsic motivation and psychological well-being in modern society. Originally formulated within the psychology discipline, the SDT has been applied to other fields such as management, organizational behavior, marketing, and information systems. While self-determination theory is influential in motivation research, it has several notable limitations. First, its emphasis on autonomy reflects a Western individualistic bias, raising questions about its applicability in collectivist cultures, where interdependence is prioritized. The assumption that autonomy, competence, and relatedness are universally valued has been contested, with evidence suggesting cultural variation in need prioritization. Methodologically, SDT faces challenges in operationalizing its motivational continuum, as differentiating between intrinsic, identified, introjected, and external regulation can be problematic, and self-report instruments such as the basic psychological needs scale are vulnerable to social desirability bias. Some constructs, like the relative autonomy index, have been criticized for weak psychometric validity. The theory also risks oversimplifying motivation by emphasizing intrinsic over extrinsic factors, potentially underestimating the constructive role of well-structured extrinsic motivators in low-interest tasks. Moreover, granting excessive autonomy can lead to decision fatigue and reduced performance, challenging the universality of the more autonomy is better principle. SDT is relatively underintegrated with broader psychological frameworks such as the Big Five or social identity theory, limiting interdisciplinary insights, and much of the evidence base remains cross-sectional, with calls for longitudinal and neuroscientific studies to better capture motivational dynamics over time. Finally, in applied contexts such as human-computer interaction and game design, SDT principles are sometimes used superficially, neglecting the theory's nuanced requirements for sustaining deep engagement.